What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. I am Scott Leese, one of the co-founders of the Surf and Sales Summit. November 27th to December 1st of this year is our next event. We've got a couple tickets left. We've also got an alumni event for all you alumni. That is the first week of December. Joined here today by my good friend and co-founder and co-host of this podcast, Richard Harris. What's going on, dude?
Dude, just good to catch up with you. Like, that's the beautiful thing of this podcast. Otherwise, we'd only talk like once every 3 months. So
that's what people don't know about the podcast, is that really it's just so you and I can hang out and have a chat. And we just invite other people mostly to listen to us ramble.
Right, exactly.
It's really not fair to our guests, probably. Speaking of guests, we have a killer guest today. Whose claim to fame is that he has a higher lifetime batting average than our good friend Larry Long Jr. We will introduce him in just a minute. His name is Casey Cavell. He is a founder, investor, washed up baseball player, ministry lead, all sorts of things going on in his world. We'll get to him in just a second. Richard's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on with our wonderful sponsors, Hubspot.
Yeah, so as we wind down the summer, as we get to the end of August of 2023, people are back from vacations. Maybe a couple of people still have the late school start for their kids, and they've got one more thing in them, or they've got a Labor Day weekend trip. But HubSpot's here to help. One of the cool things they have is a bunch of AI powered tools to help you work even when you're supposed to be playing, which is allowed, and help you become more efficient while you work and use the dreaded word of multitasking. HubSpot's AI tools can help write content for you. It can help run reports or analyze the reports for you, and saves you a ton of time when you really use good HubSpot and good AI. You can save yourself a couple hours a week, right? Imagine, 52 weeks a year, you're saving yourself, 100 hours a year. What can you do with that time? That's very, very cool. So be sure to check out HubSpot's AI tool. It's also built into the platform. That's the cool part. They've got ChatSpot. They've got a content assistant. They got a ton of stuff going on to help everybody, whether you're in sales or marketing or the department. So thank you. Please check out HubSpot.com, and we appreciate it. Back to you in the studio, Scott.
Do you know that our guest, Casey Cavell, has built a $40 million portfolio from a $9,000 investment?
No, tell me.
Just like your stock market portfolio that you're always bragging about.
Yes, which is about true. About the same return, but it's taken me 20 years to do it.
Yeah. The thing is, though, like many of us, he experienced some burnout. So we're going to get into both these things. Two super relevant topics for both of us. Only one of which we've achieved, which is burning out. Neither of us have achieved the $40 million portfolio part yet, but we're working on it. Casey, welcome to the show, man.
What's going on, guys? Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Tell everybody just a little bit about who you are and what you've been up to.
Gosh, well, so the $9,000, I probably got that from actually a $50 investment, which is kind of crazy. I was just thinking about that. I don't know why. I guess it's summertime, and the summer is like when the World Series of Poker happens. I don't know if either of you guys are poker players or know anything about it, but that's how I got my initial seed investment. I figured out a way to turn $50 into a few thousand and started playing online poker and all that kind of stuff, and realized that, you know what, some of these guys that play poker, they own businesses, and I didn't want to just be stuck around a poker table inside a smoky casino for the rest of my life. So I figured out a way to parlay a couple good poker tournaments into a business and got my start, and surrounded myself with a lot of really cool, fun people, and just started making it happen.
This is amazing. There's some sort of, I'm going to screw up the company name. I want to say it has to do with like parcel delivery, like UPS or
FedEx.
Yeah. FedEx. Is that the company? This guy like can't make payroll, and he goes to Vegas and puts it all on black a few times and hits.
Yeah.
And the company survives.
Yep.
That's what Casey's story reminded me of.
Yeah, there's a book called First Break All the Rules there that is highlighted as the intro attention grabber.
Did you have that level of guts, Casey, when you were building?
I did my best. The game that I played was Texas Hold'em, right? So like in most casino games, you're playing against a casino and you can't win long term. Like it's impossible because you have a small statistical disadvantage. Like you can't win. You're a 1%, right? Like you have a 49% chance, 51% the house is going to win. But in poker, you're not playing against a casino. You're playing against 9 other people sitting around a table. And how the casino makes money is they take a small percent of each pot. So in that, you're playing against other people, not the casino. And I just realized if I'm playing a game, whether you're in business or whatever, like if you have 9 competitors and you're the one that studies the game, that learns how to manage your emotions, that knows how to manage your money, that picks the right opportunities to go after, knows when to quit, right? Knows when to double, like you were kind of it. So that was what I did. I just became a student. Whatever I did in life, whether it was poker or business or baseball, I just hired the best coaches and surrounded myself with people that were winning in whatever I did. And eventually I figured out ways to make it happen.
So you launch all this stuff. You've founded and bought and invested in tons of businesses over the last few years. But I want to hear a little bit about this brick wall that you ran into, because I think everybody's experienced this at some point in time in their career. I think so many people have experienced it, or at least been more willing to talk about it in the last 3 or 4 years. I'm always fascinated by, what were the warning signs? Did you know it was coming? And what did you do to heal and kind of start over?
Yeah, so I'm a baseball guy, and there's some days, if you were a pitcher, I played shortstop, but there's some days where you can just pitch and it's just free and it's easy and it's simple, right? And there's some days where you have to really go out there and you have to hustle, like you really labor and it's tough. And I equate that to business a little bit, because when you're in your sweet spot in business, like it doesn't feel like work. You're just making it happen and it just flows. Now, what I typically find is most people, like, they're doing things when they're in that mentality where things are just working and it doesn't feel like work, that they love to do and they're great at. The challenge is if you're ever out of alignment where you're spending a lot of your time doing things that you don't really like to do, but you're good at it, and you spend a lot of your time doing those kind of things, you're going to burn out. And I like to look at 70-30. 70% of your time should be spent on things that you love to do and you're good at, right? Or you at least like to do. And what I ended up doing was I built businesses that I didn't figure out a way to get myself out of running the day-to-day, because I didn't love running the day-to-day operations of a business. I love building and growing and networking and connecting, but I didn't love the day in, day out. And I was spending 70% of my time, guys, like running the day-to-day, managing the people and putting in the processes and doing all that. And until I figured out a way to get out of that, I burn out, because every day I'm like, oh, what's on my calendar today? I got 10 hours of meetings. I don't love meetings, at least 10 hours worth. I don't love some of the things that I had to do that day. I love new partnerships and innovation and new ideas, not like managing people and make sure everything gets done. So after years of running the day in, day out operations of the business, I burn out. And I had a very successful business at the time. And I literally was like, I'm just going to lock it up. I don't even care anymore. I can't do it. And that's when
you just literally shut it down.
No, I thought about it. I thought about it because I'm like, I physically couldn't do it anymore. And I had another gentleman that kind of showed up at the right time, because instead of just shutting it down, I listed it for sale.
Gotcha.
And when I listed it for sale, a guy came in, he's like, hey, I really like you. I like your business. But like, if you disappear, I got to run it. I don't want to run it. I'm like, yeah, I know. Well, I don't either. I didn't tell him that, because I'm like, can this guy buy me out of a very successful business on paper? But I didn't want to run it. And he goes, look, I'll make you a deal. Let me invest in, 66%, right, of what you want. You keep a third of the business, and let's be a team. And when we became a team, it kind of worked, because he did all the things that I didn't want to do, and I did all the things that he couldn't do. And those things that I was doing were the things that I loved to do. So I literally found a business partner that was like the perfect puzzle piece, because he liked some of those things that were burning me out, and he took those things off of my plate, which then freed me up to start doing more of what I loved. And we just figured out a way to grow the business. And we went from a $2 million business to a $10 million business in a couple of years. And it was literally because I had a team and built people around me that were able to get stuff done without me. And that's when I first learned how to build a business. I mean, I had a few successes before that, but I was just flipping businesses. I was going in and buying them for $1 million and selling them for $3 million just by putting in processes and systems. But I didn't really figure out how to build a real business that didn't rely on me until, I met my business partner at the time.
This is Scott's dream. You just defined the last sentence is Scott's dream. You gladly buy a business for $1 million, put in process and sell it for $3 million and be done.
Yes. I'm feeling very inadequate right now. That is literally, I literally should be doing that.
The funny thing is that we say this all the time, is that I'll come up with some idea, and because I don't like to do certain things, Scott has a bigger vision and can take that idea and exit by 10. And it sounds like your Scott's version of my Scott, where you take that idea and you 10x Scott's vision of what he's trying to do. So I assure you, you should charge Scott a lot of money on the next phone call. It's going to ask you how to do it. So you just got a client, Casey.
There you go.
So I want to go back to the 70-30 thing though, right? When you do this, and in the beginning, you don't mind doing the 30% of the stuff you hate, right? Like because you know that you're grinding, and maybe you're passionate because it's got new car smell. And then after 2 or 3 years, that's when you is that what it's like for you? I don't know that it is. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you jump in, first, you got to realize what needs to be done.
Right.
So until you know what needs to be done, it's like you got to do whatever it takes to get the job done. But when you go into a business or you're in a business, it's really defining, all right, where do we want to go as a company? And then what are the things that need to be done to make that happen? And what I find is the majority of people and the majority of businesses, they do Pareto's principle, right? Where 20% of the stuff they do produces 80% of the result, if you guys are familiar with that, right? So it's like, if you have a 10-hour workday, only 2 of those hours are the stuff that really produces 80% of the fruit or 80% of the results. So what I had to do is figure out, all right, what are all the things that actually need to be done in this business? And then start realizing, all right, I'm good at this. I'm not good at this. Because if you spend your time doing things you're not good at, like, you're not going to make it, because you're spending time doing things that you're not good at. Like, whatever it is that's being done, it's not going to be good enough to become a successful business. So the first thing you got to do is delegate the things and find other team members that can do the things that you're not good at. The second thing, right, is figuring out the things that you're good at, but you don't want to do. And early on in a business, you just got to do those things. If you're good at it, but you don't want to do it early on, you just got to do it, and then get it to a point where you can bring in somebody else. And the way that I look at it is, if I can hire somebody else to do that job, how much time is that going to save me? And then can I go use that time to go and do other things that are going to pay for that person's time? So if I'm running finances for my business or whatever it looks like, and I can hire a CFO, and that CFO is going to save me 10 hours a week, and that's going to cost me $10,000 a month. Okay, so what is that? 40 hours a month I get back for $10,000. Was that $40 an hour? I hope, right? That's why I would hire a CFO, to figure out if I know my numbers, but I know I can generate a whole lot more than $40 an hour with my time. And I think that's what people get stuck on. It's like, hey, I don't want to hire people, or I don't want to delegate. And it's like, you're costing yourself. So I think that's it. First, figure out what you're not good at, hire other people, do the things that you have to do just to survive, but then slowly but surely hire those things out if it frees you up more time to go do what you do best.
Great. So two things is, Scott, he just defined my economic impact definition from Neat Selling. So clearly he's a fan of me.
Yeah, I was a student of your
student, right? The other thing is I'm pulling out the calculator and an abacus, because if the math is right and Scott works 2 hours a day, which is, 120 minutes, only 24 minutes, that 20% produces the 80% of his revenue, right? Is that right?
There you go.
Doing the math right? Your 2 hour workday.
I feel attacked.
You are. For some reason, I'm on fire this one here.
I feel attacked. I didn't even figure out which $1 million business to buy that you could flip to a $3 million business.
Gosh, so what did I do? The first thing I did was I bought a self-storage facility.
Oh my God. I drive by it all the time and I think to myself, this has got to be a moneymaker.
Yeah, if you do it right? If you buy it right, if you manage it right, all of that, because you got to make sure you get in at the right price, but then you got to figure out how are you going to make it worth more? So for me, it's all about the numbers. And then I started, the baseball and softball academies I had, right? It's like, all right, well, if they're doing this and I can do this, 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 and this to increase the top line or decrease the bottom line, and it's valued at a certain multiple of net profit, right? Total revenue minus total expenses. And that's typically how a business is worth. And I know I can grow the revenue by 2x or 3x, then that's how I know I can double it. And for me, it's not trying to recreate the wheel. It's just, all right, is the market going to support this type of business, right? Like if I'm going to buy a self-storage facility and it's 50% occupied, I got to know that the market can be 90%. And I realized the first one I bought, everybody else was 90 and this guy was 50. Well, why? They don't answer their phone. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to build the relationships. They don't have some of the amenities. And with the baseball academy that I built or bought, the gentleman that I bought it from, they didn't know how to answer the phone. They didn't know how to sell. They didn't know how to follow up. They didn't know how to give great customer service. They didn't know how to get reviews. They didn't know how to get their great customers sending more people. So for me, it's how do you grow revenue? And then if you grow revenue, everything else will figure itself out. If you know how to do that, know how to sell, right? You guys are in that world. If you know how to sell, everything else will figure itself out. You just got to make sure you deliver.
You think people like us have an easier time operating and making revenue, making money in those kind of worlds versus this software B2B world that we've been in for so long?
What do you mean by that?
How do I phrase this the right way? Some people grind away for decades in software and B2B, and we're hoping for, six-figure salaries initially, and then where can I make, $1 million either as an individual contributor or as a C-level executive, and maybe one day I get like this unicorn pop from an exit, right? That's one path. A different path would be maybe I cut my teeth on software sales and doing all this stuff. And you know what? I could go buy and flip storage facilities. I can go buy and flip baseball academies and things like that. Like maybe, is that a faster way to reach some pinnacle of success if I've got the foundational stuff of like difficult software selling in a difficult market? Or is it totally different and the skill sets don't necessarily transfer and you're not as likely to be successful? That's what I'm trying to dig into.
I mean, I think growing revenue is growing your revenue no matter what you're doing. So there's a lot of businesses out there that are managed by mom and pops and pest control companies.
Where people don't have like the sales acumen or chops that maybe were learned in a software selling environment is how I'm trying to drive at.
Absolutely. So if you can take a sales mentality to a business that isn't sales and make sales better, like it's going to be better, right? And there's all kinds of entrepreneurs and businesses out there that they don't know how to sell. And if you can buy a business or get into one and teach them how to sell, it's absolutely, I mean, just by doing that, you should be able to double whatever you're doing in revenue.
So I think part of it is, and tell me if I'm wrong, either of you, is that, excuse me, someone can know how to sell and be good at it. They may have the risk aversion to do it on their own, right? And they may create, Scott, as we say, the excuse factory of, oh, I don't have the capital to do this. Well, there's lots of ways to find capital, right? There's lots of ways to, and they won't even go research that part, right? The imposter syndrome, whatever it is. So I think part of this is, as I hearing the conversation is, how do we get out of our own way to go do this? Because there are a lot of successful salespeople who need that comfort. They need that stability. I think it's somewhat generational too. It's harder for older generations to kind of think about this side hustle thing. right? As opposed to the younger generation where it's normal and or they've been forced into it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know the answer. The whole side hustle
Why the fuck are you here if you don't know the answer? Like that's the like I won't fire. Sorry.
Well, I know I'm a consultant. I just ask all the questions. I don't tell anybody what to do, because then if I do and they follow my advice and it was wrong, I can't get fired, right? I just ask all the questions and let them come up with a solution. So that's half of what I do, right? Because it's all mindset mentality. If you want to be great at something, it's all mindset mentality. That's it. We can worry about how to sell and all this, but you got to believe it first. So I think getting to like this whole side hustle thing, like it's just hard. It's a hobby, and hobbies cost you money and they take time. So it's like, if you're in something or you see a potential side hustle that could turn into something and you have the means to just focus on that, like do it. But you need a plan. I think a lot of people get into a side hustle, but they don't have a plan and they don't have a team and they don't have the support to get there. But I also think it's like, people that are listening, it's like, what kind of life do you want to build? Can you build that life by just being a sales professional and just nailing it and doing that better? Can you figure out a way to not sell for 8 hours a day, but sell for 4 hours a day, but have a better pitch or know who your target market is and have a better sales process? Because, everybody has the 80-20 principle. 20% of the people that you're going after are the ones that you should be going after, right? 20% of the contacts and the calls that you have are the ones that produce results. So I don't know the answer. Is there a better way to build what you ultimately want to do? I just like to put a goal on paper 3 years from today. I always ask everybody I meet with, like, 3 years from today, let's say we're hanging out, we're surfing, we're on the beach, we're about to go out and paddle out and hit the waves. Like, what does success look like? What do you have to accomplish personally and professionally for you to be satisfied and happy with your progress? And when you answer that, then you can try to figure out, all right, what's the easiest way to get there? Is it to be in a business? Is it to own your own business? Is it to partner with somebody? So it's tough to think about, but I think it's drawing a line in the sand, figuring out where you want to go, and then figuring out other people that have already done it, and then partnering up with them or asking them for help.
I think that's great. So we're going to see you on the sand in Costa Rica in November. You come into Surf and Sale. Right? How I interpreted that.
Hey, I'll run it by my wife. And if you guys have any sales tips on how to figure out a way to make that happen, we have 2 kids under 2, and we have 2 more twins on the way in January. So I might need to hire like your best sales expert and consultant to help me with like the best sales pitch. But to answer your question, no, I will not be there.
Scott's your pitch man on that. That is. You got to explain to it. Be able to explain why it's a benefit to her, right? Because in a year she gets to go away, or 6 months, or all that stuff. So,
hey, I should not have said no. I'm hearing some things that I might be able to. I hate that word, no. I'm hearing some things I might be able to work in there. So I'll get back. I'll get back.
With road hope. There's always.
Okay, I want to come back to you in a second. The question I'm going to ask is, okay, so you took the $50, you turned it into a few thousand, and then you decided to go, I don't know, create a VC fund or build your network business, right? What was the first one you chose? And what was the first mistake as you went big? So that's my question. What's the first mistake? How did you go from 50 to a few thousand to more? And what was the first mistake? But first, I got to jump in for a second and tell you about our good friend, Mr. Mark Roberge, who has actually been on the Surf and Sale podcast. He has his own podcast on the Hubspot Podcast Network called The Science of Scaling, where he, if you didn't know about Mr. Roberge, if you're in SaaS sales, how could you not? He was the founding CRO at HubSpot, senior lecturer at Harvard Business School, and co-founder of Stage 2 Capital. He brings in very successful sales leaders, particularly in tech, to learn their secrets and strategies and tactics for company growth, and hopefully help you avoid some mistakes those folks have made. If you don't know Mr. Roberge, he's very fun and engaging, and brings a very thoughtful mindset as he shares his knowledge and wisdom. So please check out Science of Scaling, hosted by Mark Roberge on the HubSpot Podcast Network. So, Casey, gave you 30 or 45 seconds to think about the answer. What's the answer?
So very first thing I did was I invested $9,000 into a 6-unit apartment complex. 6 units, $9,000 down payment, seller financed the rest of it. And it was really easy. They were charging half the amount of market rent. And I realized if I could just charge market rent, fill the one vacancy, which everybody else was full on the market, I would double or triple the value of the business. So that was the very first thing I did. And it wasn't that risky because I invested a little bit of money, but I just knew it would be very simple to solve that problem. And when I did, it would double or triple the, value of the business. So that was the very first thing I did.
How long did you flip it? How long till you flipped it?
I think it was 1.5 years, 2 years-ish. I just kept it for cash flow and, it made, a few $1,000s a month, right? But that's great when you only put $9,000 in. But then when I flipped it, I think we doubled the value. I think we sold it for almost $200,000 and then took that and then started doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's what our family does. So I'm interested to hear that. What's been your biggest swing and miss? Have you had any?
Yeah, gosh. So one of the storage facilities I had, we had a 500-unit complex, and it was hard for me to give up control to a management company to run the day-to-day, believe it or not. Although I didn't love it, I'm like, I can do it a 10 out of 10. There's nobody that can do it better than me. So that prevented me from going and finding more storage facilities to buy because I was stuck running the day-to-day. So although I could have hired somebody and they would have done it 8 out of 10, and I'm going to do it at 10 out of 10, it was hard for me. I can't hire them because they're going to do it 20% less good, right, than I would. That's not acceptable because you got to be perfect. And that prevented me from going and finding other underperforming businesses to turn around and flip, where if I were to do it again, I would have hired better people in all of my businesses. I would have paid them more. I would incentivize them and tied them into the overall success of the business. And I would have done anything I could have to buy my time back, because that's it. Hire people to buy your time back. And I failed to do that early on. And, it cost me some opportunity.
That's great. I appreciate it. So how long did it take you to realize that was the challenge?
I'm still realizing that, right? Because every day I'm like, why am I doing this? Why can't I hire somebody else? So it's hard because I'm a perfectionist. It's hard to give up control. Man, how long did that? It took years. I would 5-7 years of man, what if I just would have brought somebody else in that was better suited for this job, that would have freed my time up. So it took years.
So just even doing the math, right? So if you'd have realized that after year one, right? Because year one, you might have to do it, right? You got to figure it out. You need to know what you're looking for. How much do you think that cost you in investing in other properties or other storage facilities?
Oh, millions of dollars. That one facility that I bought, I think I paid just under $1 million for it. I sold it a couple of years later for 2.5. Well, I was running that business for 1.5 years, 2 years. All I would have had to do was go and find another $1 million storage facility that was poorly managed, hire a management company. And even if they only grew it 50%, right? I bought it for $1 million. It's 1.5 versus $1 million versus 2.1, but I'm not running it. I probably could have found 3, 4, 5 more of those kind of things.
Yeah. And that's the part. So last question, then we'll turn it over to you to ask us the question. What are you doing to yourself? Because you say you still struggle with it. I think we all do. What are you doing to yourself to slap yourself in the face to go, Casey, you're doing it again. It's time. Go find somebody else. Or is that what your wife does? She gets to slap you in the face.
Yeah, she helps. She's a tough critic, which is good. I have a coach that I meet with every 2 weeks, and she knows me really well. And I'm just really honest with her. And I literally created a checklist and a spreadsheet of success principles that I need to have. And we just go over it every couple of weeks. It's am I doing these things? Am I not doing these things?
Okay. Got one more question, because you just nailed, this is the last question. You have a list of success principles. What are they? Because I think people would love to be ooh, maybe I need those.
One is stay in my ideal week. So I have a week built out Monday through Friday where I have blocks of time that I should be doing certain things throughout the week. And I got to make sure I do it. So for instance,
how the heck did we get into that block?
Yeah. So I don't even know what day it is right now. We're not kidding.
We invaded his ideal week, Richard.
So I have 3-hour blocks if I'm gonna be on a podcast, or I have a podcast myself, right? Like these are the times I think I do Wednesdays and Fridays, or when I'm on podcasts. And if it can't be done there, I could make an exception, right? But it's ideally what I'm going for, which is I need a certain amount of time working with clients. I need a certain amount of time working with potentially getting new clients. I need a certain amount of time networking with people, adding value to people. I got my workouts on there. I got when I'm eating on there. So one of my success principles is my ideal week, because I know if I can create that, everything else will work itself out. So that's like the leading indicator, that if I do that, everything else will work itself out.
Man, that's good. Okay. So what are 2 or 3 more on your success checklist?
Gosh, how I communicate. I have a communications checklist. Am I being really good at asking questions and listening versus telling? I think the majority of people in my past, I'm just talking. I'm listening to respond rather than listening to just listen. And the last one was have fun. My wife and I, we have like a family motto. Have a fun and simple life, put family first, and work as a team. So I always talk about that. Like I'm always thinking about that. Am I simplifying my life? Are we having fun? Do we have anything fun planned? How are we working as a team, right? If I'm going to have a boys' weekend, does that mean my wife's going to have a girls' weekend, right? Like that motto is something that I kind of keep. And if I can keep that at the top of my mind, life's too short, have fun, right? Like work together as a team, business, families, whatever. That's what I try to stick to.
Dude, then you just sold her on going to surf and sales. This is part of our family motto of have fun, right?
I try. And then when's your trip, right? Like that's just the way.
First, I think maybe it's, when are you going to do your trip? You're about to have another set of twins. When do you want to have that? Let's get that on the calendar. Oh, by the way. So,
That's called a baby moon, Richard. That's what the kids call a baby moon these days.
Okay. All right.
Well, she's got to come with me for the baby moons. I got to go with her. So that's like
you didn't do a baby moon. I did a baby moon.
There you go.
All right. So Casey, this has been fascinating, like really cool. Like I've got so many tweets that I could pop out from this, all this knowledge. So thank you so much. Particularly like the success, the success checklist. What do you want to ask us? How can we be helpful to you?
What's your 2 a.m. thoughts for business, right? Like, what are those things that keep you up at night? Is there anything that's like, you know what, if I could just solve this one problem for my business or the people I work with, like what would that be, you think?
Well, my 2 a.m. thought is, how do I get the fuck back to sleep? But I'm not getting back to sleep because of those thoughts. So it's a fair question, Casey. For me, it is a little bit more of a long-term strategy, right? I'm 53 years old. How do I keep doing things, helping people, be relevant, continue to make money, but maybe not have to work as many hours, right? I think that's my big strategy, which kind of goes back to that line in the sand. What's your 3-year plan to get out of this stuff, right? Which, for our family, we have these investments very similar to you, plus the stock stuff that Scott was talking about. But I don't want to quit, right? I want to be a part of it still. So I think that's one thing. And then I think the deep down psychological thing is like, oh, in 7 years, I'm going to be 60. Am I going to be too old for this startup game that I'm in, which I'm not, but I still think that's my imposter syndrome. I think as all of us turn a decade, right, we always sort of wonder what's that going to be like. So that's that's the stuff if I'm thinking about it, aside from like day-to-day shit, like the stuff I got to get done. Those are the
yeah. Got it. Well, I was just going to ask the question. I have no solutions. So
I think for me, it's where's my home run. I think I've, for me at least, figured out exactly the things that I'm good at, exactly the things that I like to do versus not like to do. But I'm missing like a grand finale. And how do I get that? What does that look like? because after that, I want to be done. I'm not somebody that wants to work forever. And if I won the lottery today, I'd just quit everything.
You would, but you'd still need. I know you, buddy. Like,
I'd necessarily work. I'd find something to do, but that's different to me.
That's what I mean. You'd want to stay engaged. I don't know that you'd.
I would probably try to go coach like high school soccer and win a couple championships and just be like completely obsessed with sport again, right? Or I'd buy a small team in some country like Wrexham style, right? That's different. That doesn't even count.
That's just you just working even harder though, Scott. I know you.
You know what, Richard?
Yeah.
You're fucking up. My 2 a.m. dream is becoming a 2 a.m. nightmare, dude.
I know.
Get out of my dream, Richard. This is my dream. All right. That's what it is though, Casey. It's where's the home run, right? It's where's the like big 7 figures like pop. Like I've sorted out how to make 7 figures plus a year. But where's the like 8-figure pop? And I don't know where that comes from without like doing, building something new and building something like big, which I don't know how much stomach I have for yet. So I'm just stuck in that like sphere, that loop, if you will. It tells me I'm full of shit again and fucking.
No, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think Casey may tell you and our friend Larry Long is you win as many championships with singles and doubles as you do Grand Slams. In fact, you probably win more championships that way. So you got a lot of singles and doubles, and I know you, and I know you'll hit this number. I know you'll get to that place. So I don't know. That's my suggestion. Casey, what do you think?
I have nothing to add. I'm just asking the question. I think that's great. I think knowing what is the start, and then it's how. So once the what's written down, then it's all right, how do we get there? And I always like to find other people that have done it, right? And then figure out how did they do it and ask them, if you were me, what would you do? And, be careful who you ask that question to and be careful what they say, but it's, hey, I want to exit or I want this. What would you do? Any advice? And kind of go from there.
Good question. I don't think anybody's asked us that question.
I was going to say, he flipped it on us. He flipped it. And, we do stuff like this at Surf and Sales called the Crow's Nest, where people come and, we give advice and ask questions, and you just sort of flipped it on us. So much appreciated for that.
Where can everybody find you, Casey? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, CaseyCavell.com. So I'm there, CaseyCavell.com. I got a podcast called The Dugout CEO as well. So it's people that are, sports-minded, baseball people, but we're talking about life, leadership, right? Being a CEO, being a leader, being a husband, being a father. I mean, it's how to become an MVP at life. So we talk very little about baseball, but it's former players, coaches, entrepreneurs that played baseball, that are baseball fans. And gosh, we've had everybody on there from Major League All-Stars to pastors to high school coaches, right, to current players.
Did Larry get on there? Did Larry get on?
Larry Long got on there. So we're going to put that episode.
The bar is real low for baseball.
Yeah, he just paid a lot of money. So it's typically $10,000, paid in advance, all that kind of stuff. But
there is full pay to play.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. CaseyCavell.com. I got a newsletter. It's all about focus, helping people focus on taking that vision and making it a reality. So that's kind of it.
Well, we appreciate you spending time with us today, Casey. Wish you the best of luck. And we will see everybody next time on the Surf and Sales podcast.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks, guys.